Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Welcome to another one of the 2022 Project Orchids, the final look. We're on to orchid number 6 now, out of 9. Same format as before. I will drag out the clips from March, the initial look, and then update 1 in May, update 2 in July, update 3 in September, and then we'll have a look at the plant as it is today. At least this one does exist today, not like at least one of the others. Let's get going. Right, and the last one out of the cooler, shadier set is a Masdevallia hybrid. This appears to be growing pretty well. We've got one very noticeable leaf tip issue. A couple of others, well, I say a couple, one. So as far as leaf health is concerned on this plant, it's not bad. There's a couple of new leaves in here that are very pale, and effectively they've stalled. They're not going to progress. What else have we got? We've got a yellowed leaf in here. No, we haven't. We had a yellow leaf in here, that's fallen off. There's quite a few new leaves coming on this, but I've got to keep my eye on it because I think it's getting too dry in between waterings. Now that's my fault, obviously. And the fact that it's got a lot of cocoa husk in there, it doesn't look that dry to me. It's got a darker colour, but what's going wrong is not obvious, but it should be as soon as I pick the pot up. How many roots do you see down in that pot? None. There's a couple of roots near the top, there. There's one down in the pot, there, and one behind it. And where are all the other roots that you can see? They're near the surface, and the surface is drying. So I think what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to top dress that with moss to try and hold the moisture near the top. Because this is where the new roots are coming out, and that's why I chose this plant. It's an anomaly. It's a healthy looking plant with lots and lots of leaves, and it's got next to no root system. So how on earth it's supporting itself, I really don't know. And it's literally only in the last couple of months that there have been any signs of root growth anyway. But there is signs of root growth now. It's not a lot for the size of the plant, but it's there. So we will top dress that with moss, ready for next time we see it, and hopefully it will establish a decent root system with that moisture around the base of the plant. Got the longer days now that this would appreciate, and what this is going to appreciate a lot more for this season, unlike in the old place, it's not going to get the heat. As far as I can tell, I'm not going to get the high temperatures up in the low 30s. You know, I was desperately trying to hold the other place down at 28, and on hot sunny clear days where the outside temperature was quite hot as well, I couldn't achieve that. I was going up over 30. It's not ideal for things like Masdevallias. Poor old Hurricane Hector was fired up all day long with 2 huge circulating fans trying to keep the plants cool. We shouldn't have that trouble this year, but what we have got is much lower humidity, and again that's probably not ideal for a Masdevallia and the others that go with it, Restrapias, Draculas, Miltoniopsis. Those are the higher ones. But what I did with this one, because it was very wobbly in its pot, is I just stuck some stakes right down through the centre of the plant, right down into the media, just to try and hold it still and keep it sitting on the surface firmly, because that's all it was doing. There were no roots to hold it in the pot, it was just sitting on the top. Well, it's started to root now, so I think we're getting somewhere. Hopefully we won't get a leaf drop on this one, but with the live moss around the top that will stay moist and help keep the surface of the media moist by not allowing it to evaporate so quickly, it should start growing those roots a bit faster and a bit better and get them deeper down into the pot. As I said, you can see the moisture in the pot, and you can see the top 2 centimeters is drying out. And unfortunately that's where most of the new roots are. So that's the job for this one this year, is initially to get a decent root system going with a bit of aid on the top of the media, and hopefully followed by perhaps a bloom now and again. This one hasn't bloomed for ages. Now that's another thing that the Masdevallias are getting. They're on the top shelf this year. I'll just swing round. I don't normally do this in a project video, but I've got my cooler, shadier ones. They're not exactly shaded this year. They're on a higher shelf. Okay, they're at the rear of the building, which has less light than those at the front, but nonetheless they're getting a lot more light than they did in the other place. So we'll see what effect that has. So roots first, hopefully followed by some blooms, as with the roots obviously the new growth should push on a bit better than they are now, and we'll see how we do. But as I said, it's an anomaly. It's quite a nice looking Masdevallia, good sized plant, but what it hasn't got is roots. As I said, it amazes me how it manages to keep its leaves. So that's plant number 3. And the last one in group 2 is this Masdevallia, which I discussed in the in the March video with this one, that it was an oddity because the plant itself actually looks quite healthy. At that particular time there were 1 or 2 leaves looking like this. Well, they still look like that, and a few others have joined them. So there are a few leaf tips with some yellowing issues, but there are new growths and quite a few of the new leaves are pushing on nicely now. The main reason I thought of it as an anomaly was the lack of roots. That seems to have been addressed now. The plant is producing quite a few roots and they are getting well down into the pot, and so I just need to turn it round a bit. And I believe the reason for that is the moss that I put round the top, which we discussed last time. I said that the pot itself was staying wet but the top was drying out fast. So by putting the moss there, it was holding the moisture near the top where there were new roots. And now those roots have been able to stay hydrated and get down into the pot. Now it's not a giant root system by any means, but at least it is one, and there's plenty more coming. So what we need from that now, we've got some roots, the media isn't old so it can stay in that pot. What we need now is some blooms. That would be nice, wouldn't it? This one hasn't bloomed for ages, but it's growing its roots now and its new growths are progressing and getting up somewhere near full size, because the ones when we looked last time were a bit small. They weren't maturing properly. I think this plant will get better and better as that root system gets better, and hopefully the new growths will then get up to the same size as previous growths, and hopefully, seeing as I'm not quite sure why, we don't get too much more of this yellowing leaf tips. Now that's going to be either an acidity issue with pH and or a nutrient issue, like there are some when it perhaps could do without them. It's more likely to be that way round. It isn't going to be lack of nutrients, not with these. They can live off next to nothing. So anyway, so that's that one. That's the last one in group 2. Okay, as far as the Masdevallia goes, it has done something I'd rather it hadn't done, but we did sort of look into that in the, a couple of months ago. I deliberately haven't touched this so that we can see it. It would have been so tempting to trim the ends of these leaves off with the brown tips and the ones with the yellowing tips, but I need it to be seen in case anybody else has come across it and might know. I mean, I just think it may have had too much feed. I doubt if it's had too little. I mean, we've got heat to progress with, but what we've got here is a distorted bud. But I left it on so that you could see the colour. Now it is a deep orange with stripes, and it's got that purple sheen on it that you get from the tiny purple hairs. It's a very attractive bloom. But what's coming on behind it is more. Yeah? So last time I said, right, the next thing you need to do is get some blooms going. Well, its first attempt is distorted. I'd say that's undersized as well, so we'll see what the next few do. As far as the root progress is concerned, whoops, dripping all over me cloth, we do have a lot of root tips all over the place and an awful lot spreading down in through that moss. So I think it's done what was almost expected of it. By getting a decent root system, it can now bloom. It's got the strength to bloom. It's still producing new growth. There's still new growth, new leaves pushing up all over the place. And it may just be that these are old. But I need somebody who grows Masdevallias and has done for a very long time to say, do they drop old leaves? And when they drop old leaves, do they tend to go yellow from the tip and run down the leaf until eventually they fall off? Question. I haven't got an answer. I haven't. It's only recently that I've managed to get a couple of Masdevallias to look like a half decent plant, and I've still got some that don't. So yeah, open-ended question. Is that natural? And if it isn't, any ideas what it might be? And we'll go from there. That's that one. That's the last one in this group. Now the Masdevallia last time we had a lot of blackened leaf tips, and we also had a lot of yellow leaf tips. Now quite a few of those have fallen off, so they're gone. I haven't taken them off, they fell off. There's still a few left like this, but what you will notice on here is this is what we've got. It's a coating. Now it may well be mould, mildew type thing. It could be that there is a film that's been left by the smoke bombs. It could be a combination of both. But either way, this one, out of the ones on that particular shelf, seems to have suffered more than others. So as a precaution, that's going to get a fungicide spray now. So if that is mould on there, then it'll kill it. It might also shine the leaves up a bit. Now this has had quite a few blooms in the gap, quite a few. There's only one left at the moment. It's still producing new leaves, so the shiny new leaves are still coming up through. We've got a good root system now, happy with that. The moss on the top seems to have done the job. And I was thinking when the first bloom opened it was undersized. I don't think it was, because all the other blooms have been roughly the same size. Again, very attractive blooms, lovely striping with those purple hairs that catch the light as the light passes over them, which I hope you can see. Yeah, so overall, as my Masdevallias go, that's not a bad plant. For me, that's not a bad plant, but I will give it a fungicide treatment. Once I've done that, if when the plant dries off and everything that this film is still there, then I will just get a cotton wool pad and some clean water and just wash them off. It does just brush off. You can brush it off with your fingers. It comes off really easily. But obviously it's unsightly, and if it is mould, I'm sure it can't be doing the plant any good, so we'll get rid of it. So yeah, that's the last one in group 3. All I can expect from this is for it to continue to grow, because although the day lengths will shorten through as we go in towards November for the end of the Project Orchids, the day lengths will shorten. The level of light in here is not going to go down that much, only how long it lasts, because without the shade netting in here, this is very, very bright. So this is not going to suffer from lack of light, not by any means. Consequently, without the heat and with reasonable light, I expect this to carry on growing well on into the winter, if not through the winter and out the other end. The only thing that will stop it is the short day lengths. Otherwise it should keep going. As far as temperatures are going, it's going to be happy. You know, it's going to be happier now than it ever has been. So, not doing bad. Not bad at all. Okay, and a look at the plant as it is now, and we've crept on over into December now. I didn't get them all done in November. but there is 9 to do this time, not just 3. Now here we have a Masdevallia that on the surface looks okay. No, it's not. The last couple of weeks, every time I go anywhere near this plant, it drops leaves. Now, the leaves that are left don't look bad, but that's now. I've just picked the plant up now, and that's what fell off. You know, this is not good. And they don't look wet at the bottom as though they're rotting. They just fall. Now, there is I'm not sure whether it's a virus or just an infection. I think it's called Masdevallia leaf wilt. And I remember a Masdevallia guy doing a talk, and he was a Masdevallia hybridizer. So he bred Masdevallias and grew mainly Masdevallias. So he sort of knew what he was talking about, basically. And he mentioned something, and I think he called it Masdevallia leaf wilt. Whether that's a technical term or not, I don't know. But he said if your plant gets this, it will drop all its leaves in quite quick succession, and as far as he knew, there was no cure. And he also didn't really know what it was, whether it was bacterial infection or a virus or what. But he said that if you ever get a plant that starts dropping leaves fast and like it's not bone dry, it hasn't lost all its roots, to all intents and purposes, things look okay, it's just dropping leaves frequently, heading towards 0. He said the first thing you need to do is get it away from all your other plants and see if it will stop. He said he's had some that have dropped like 3/4 of their leaves, and then the few leaves that are left it keeps, and then after quite a while it starts growing again. So he had no real explanation. Now that might be what this has got. This is not, it's not bone dry. What I'm actually going to do when I finish filming, this was an enigma because it was a healthy looking plant with virtually no roots. Well, it's grown roots now, and to encourage it to grow roots I put this moss around the base of the plant. So the first thing I'm going to do is take that moss off because it's got roots now, and it might be something to do with the moss. You know, something that's come in with the moss. This was wild moss after all. Seems strange that it should wait this long to have an effect on the plant, but I don't believe it's a you know, I'm in much colder temperatures as we're heading into winter, you know, for November and on into December. I've got much lower temperatures, but it's a Masdevallia. Now some of them are intermediate. They do grow at warmer temperatures, lower elevations, and as this is a hybrid and what's in it is unknown, maybe it is more intermediate than cool growing and is sensitive to those temperature changes, and it's too cold for it. But that's the least likely. It's highly unlikely, quite honestly. Anyway, it's still with me at the moment. I'm going to get that moss off and you know, make sure that none of the leaves are touching it, and see how we go. And there's not much else I could do. I mean, some might say, well, try repotting it, get it out of the old media, but it's not old media. It hasn't been in that pot that long. And in the main, it's mostly bark, looking at it. Smaller grade bark. But anyway, I'm going to get the moss off, and we'll see if it will cease dumping leaves like they're going out of fashion. It's lucky it was such a huge, I mean, over the season it's grown well and had a large number of leaves. And so it can afford to lose some without looking all weak. It's still growing new growths. It's not stopped growing. There are new growths coming out here. So, I don't know. It's an anomaly. Anyway, it's still with me, and that's plant number 6, the third one in group 2. So we've got 3 left to do now, which is the plants from group 3. So there we go. A look at a Masdevallia that's done well all through the season until the last few weeks, and it's dropping leaves left, right and centre. Who knows whether it'll still be here in another couple of weeks. Time will tell. But we can't be successful with all our plants. I've said that all along. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.